Hi, in this quick demo, we'll take a look at how to set up an automated workflow to process invoices and reconcile them with purchase orders in QuickBooks. So we're looking at these two invoices here. These have two different layouts, but similar information within them: invoice numbers, seller names, purchase order numbers, as well as the items that have been purchased. Let's look at our workflow. We have 4 steps: an import step that determines where the documents are ingested from, an AI model that determines how the data is extracted from these invoices, some post-processing actions for reconciling with purchase orders, and then where we want the data to be extracted. Let's take a look at the AI model for extracting the data. We have a set of standard fields and tables that extract the invoice number, seller name, purchase order number, as well as the line items. The benefit is that regardless of the layout or the length of these invoices, it captures the information in the same structured output. Now, once an invoice has been extracted, we want to find a corresponding purchase order match. We do this with 2 steps. Firstly, we try to find a corresponding vendor ID in QuickBooks. The way we do this is we have an AI lookup where we provide the table within QuickBooks that we want to search, as well as some plain language instructions for how we want to search for this vendor, for this information. So in this case, we want to find the vendor ID, and what we say is use the seller name to find a partial or full match within the vendors in QuickBooks and get the corresponding vendor ID and update the data with that vendor ID. In the second step, we use that vendor ID or the purchase order number within the extracted data in the invoice to find the corresponding purchase orders from the purchase orders in QuickBooks and see whether the invoice and the purchase order has a full match, a partial match, or no match at all based on some criteria that we've provided using plain language. And then we update the purchase order ID and set a purchase order match flag within the data. And this could be useful further within our post-processing to determine whether we should flag this invoice for review or we can approve it automatically and insert it into, let's say we want to export this data to QuickBooks as a bill, we could do that, or we want to access it via API and do some further post-processing on it. We can determine those things. Now let's see how we can use this workflow to process this set of documents that we just saw. We'll just wait for these documents to finish processing. Okay, our invoices have completed processing, so now we can take a look at the results. So we have the basic invoice data extracted: invoice numbers, purchase order numbers, seller names, as well as the line items. This invoice has 1 line item. And we also have our post-processing steps. So we have a summary of what the AI did. For the first step, it tried to look for a corresponding vendor within QuickBooks with the same name as what was in the invoice, and it identified a partial match and found the vendor ID and updated the data with that vendor ID. In the second step, it used the purchase order number that was within the document and tried to find the corresponding purchase order in QuickBooks and found a match, and found that the match had the same vendor, the same total amount, and the same line items, number of line items as the invoice. And so it updated the invoice data with the purchase order ID as well as the purchase order flag with a full match. We can take a look at how the data was updated here. So we see that a purchase order ID has been added, a purchase order match flag has been added, and a vendor ID has been added. Now, this simple workflow showcases how invoices can be quickly processed as well as reconciled with purchase orders, and we can build more complex workflows as well that determine how invoices are processed and their data exported. Thanks, and I hope this was useful.